Thank you very much, Vice Chair. The board meeting of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and its component units is now called to order. Earlier today, the Committee on Operations and the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management met in public session. The Committees on Finance and the Nominating Committee met in executive session. Their reports will be filed with the official minutes of today's board meeting. The Commissioners also met in executive session earlier today to discuss matters involving ongoing negotiations or reviews of contracts or proposals, matters related to the purchase, sale, or lease of real estate property, where disclosure would affect the value thereof, or the public interest, matters related to personnel procedures, and matters involving public safety, all law enforcement. The first order of business, we're going to ask everybody in a moment to stand for a moment of silence in observance of two events. The first event is the observance of the upcoming 27th anniversary of the first terrorist attack on the World Trade Center and the memory of the 6 victims, including the 4 Port Authority employees who perished February 26, 1993. The second is an observance of a recent passing of a very valuable and special Port Authority employee, Hillerman Woods Hyatt, a beloved colleague, dear friend of so many, working very long and very late, had died while working here just a few days ago. For those that don't know, and I've talked to a lot of our colleagues, they were absolutely moved to tears when it became obvious that she was not going to make it. So I think it was important for all of us to recognize her positive contributions, her 35 years as a veteran here, her special role handling many events, whether it was organizing, whether it was working in marketing. She helped with the Port Authority Police graduations, the annual Martin Luther King Jr. Breakfast Memorial Ceremonies for the 1993 World Trade, the annual September 11th ceremonies, and so many others. She'll be missed, and I ask for both recognition of the bombing and for the passing of Hillerine. We please stand for a moment of silence.
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Yes.
before we do, I just would like to add my voice in terms of what Hillerine meant to the agency. I did attend her funeral service. It was a very moving service, and she was truly beloved. And I can tell you that many, many people have come up to me in terms of their desire to express their support, their grief, and to emphasize the service that she delivered to the agency.
Thank you. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. Today's meeting is the first of 2020. It's the agency's annual meeting. Under the bylaws, the officers are elected at the annual meeting. The nominating committee met in executive session prior to today's meeting in connection with the election of officers. Before we have Commissioner Pacino, who's the chair of the committee, have a report, I'd ask our general counsel to just give a little history and background as to how we are arriving as our annual meeting.
Well, officers of the Port Authority and its subsidiaries are nominated by a nominating committee comprised of the commissioners, but for the chairman and vice chairman. Then those officers are forwarded to the full Board of Commissioners for consideration. That has happened over the years on an ad hoc basis, but under our bylaws, that should happen at an annual meeting. And so this is our first meeting of 2020, and so today is the annual meeting where the full slate of officers has been considered in executive session by the board's nominating committee and will be considered by the full board now.
Thank you, Michael. Commissioner Pacino.
Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the nominating committee, I submit the following report. In accordance with the bylaws of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and each of its 3 subsidiary corporations, the Port Authority Trans-Hudson Corporation, Newark Legal Communications Center Urban Renewal Corporation, and the New York and New Jersey Railroad Corporation. The nominating committee met in executive session prior to today's meeting in connection with the annual election of officers. On behalf of the nominating committee of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Port Authority Trans-Hudson Corporation, Newark Legal and Communications Center Urban Renewal Corporation, and the New York and New Jersey Railroad Corporation, I desire to report that at its meeting held earlier today, in accordance with the provision of Article 7 of the bylaws, the committee, by unanimous action, submits the nomination of Kevin O'Toole for election to the office of chairman and Jeffrey H. Linford to the office of vice chairman. By unanimous action, the committee also submits the nominations of Richard Cotton as executive director and Michael E. Fabiars as general counsel. By unanimous action, the committee also submits the nominations of James E. McCoy as secretary, Elizabeth M. McCarthy as chief financial officer, Daniel G. McCarron as comptroller, and Cheryl A. Yetka as treasurer. In addition, the committee by unanimous action also submits the nominations of Richard Cotton as president of each of the Port Authority's 3 subsidiary corporations. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. May I have a motion on the nominations?
So moved.
May I have a second, please? I'll now request roll call.
Chairman O'Toole,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford. To vote so.
They didn't stop me.
We can vote on ourselves? Okay. Certainly.
Commissioner Bagger,
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz,
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera,
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Pacino,
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado.
Yes.
Motion carries, it's unanimous. Want to congratulate Jim McCoy in particular. Jim, stand up. Where are you there? How many years you been here, Jim?
29.
29?
Yes.
Congratulations, and one of your mentors, where's Karen Eastman out there? She came here just to see you, just so you know. Congratulations. All right, moving ahead, we will hear from our executive director, and I know we're going to get to these folks here. I know you want to be here longer, or you want to go back to work? What do you think? We'll get to you shortly. Mr. Executive Director, your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to report to the board and close out the results of 2019 as we turn to the challenges of 2020. On the financial side, the Port Authority ended the year 2019 on an extremely solid basis. Based on preliminary unaudited figures, the bottom line net revenues available for debt service and review and reserves were within 1% of our budget and fully provide the necessary financial support for the agency's ambitious capital plan. I'd also like to point out that if you focus on the subset of the financial results that derive from the day-to-day operations of the agency, the operating bottom line results for 2019 delivered right exactly on plan, a plan that was passed by the board in December of 2018. On behalf of the staff, I would say I'm extremely proud of the agency in achieving those results. Turning then to the operational volumes that the agency handled, the run of record-breaking volumes continued at facilities through December and made 2019 a full year of unprecedented growth. In the aviation department in 2019, JFK, Newark, and LaGuardia each set individual annual passenger records. As a result, the Port Authority's airport system as a whole handled a record 140.2 million passengers for the year, up 1.4% over 2018, which was itself a record. I might say in passing that the biggest percentage increase was surprisingly reported at LaGuardia Airport, which handled 3.3% more passengers in 2019 compared to 2018, despite the extensive construction and temporary roadway configurations which are associated with the airport's $8 billion complete rebuild. And given the agency's commitment to building two new air trains, replacing the air train at Newark and building a new air train at LaGuardia, it is worth noting that both AirTrain JFK and AirTrain Newark set annual passenger records in 2019, handling 21 million passengers at JFK and 11 million passengers at Newark. Turning to the port handled a record 7.4 million so-called TEUs, which is the measure of cargo that the port uses in 2019, breaking the previous annual record in 2018 by more than 4%. Additionally, the port set a new annual record for cargo handled by rail, up 3% over the previous record of 2018. And these strong growth patterns propelled the port to close out 2019 as the second busiest port in the nation, beating out the port of Long Beach for the full year based on loaded containers for the first time in 2 decades. At our bridges and tunnels, the New Goethals Bridge handled a record number of vehicles in 2019, up an extraordinary 6.6% over the previous annual record set in 2018. This record year at the Goethals also helped propel the entire Staten Island Bridge system to a new annual record in 2019. The 6 vehicular crossings taken as a whole accommodated 122 million eastbound vehicles, so in total that would approximate 250 million trips in both directions, which is the highest annual volume those have handled in 10 years. At PATH in 2019, PATH's average weekday ridership hit 284,000 riders, the highest weekday ridership ever recorded on the rail system. Total ridership for the year was more than 82 million passengers, which comes in second only to 2017, which included the Summer of Hell ridership increase attributable to the spike in cross-honored New Jersey Transit riders. That makes 2019 a truly extraordinary year for the agency. Turning to this year, I do want to report to the board in terms of the screening for coronavirus that has taken place at both JFK and Newark. Those 2 airports are 2 of only 11 airports where the FAA is permitting nonstop flights from mainland China to land. More than 12,000 individuals have been screened at JFK, with 5 identified for quarantine. More than 1,800 have been screened by CDC at Newark, with 1 identified for quarantine, and to date there have been no confirmed cases of the virus. The cooperation between all the agencies involved, both in New York, New Jersey, the federal government, has been excellent, and the screening has proceeded extremely smoothly. Turning to 2020, I would just say as a overall focus, we intend to remain committed to delivering in all of our priority areas. With respect to the capital plan and the Delta proposal, or the Delta deal, that is the transformation of Terminal 4 that is before you, is the first 2020 example of our focus on the capital plan. We are highly focused on customer service, and the 2 proposals you have before you to improve the bus terminal retail and to add a new ferry landing at Bayonne in terms of providing improved service are our first examples of that. We intend to remain focused on our operations, on security improvements, sustainability, and employer of choice. And we reinforced our focus on employer of choice by holding in January a State of the Port Authority where, Mr. Chairman, you and I reported to hundreds of employees, and that event has been available to everyone on our website. And I believe that we are poised to deliver a extremely positive 2020. With that, Mr. Chairman, I conclude my report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the Executive Director's report? Let me start by saying, Rick, with regard to the state of the port, last year we did 7 town hall meetings across the Port Authority agencies and buildings and met with a lot of the employees, and they had asked at that time if we can have a group town hall meeting, and because of that and other considerations, in January, you and senior staff put together, I don't know if it was the first state of the port, but it was certainly one in recent memory that was attended by over 500 employees. There was, I think, 2 hours and some odd, maybe 11 minutes. We're going to see a 7-minute compressed version of that right after I finish, and we also have made available. Is that Jim on? Where's that tape available for the employees that want to see that town hall? Is it available or not?
It's available on eNet.
I'm sorry, Commissioner McCabe?
I've heard about the success, and I haven't seen the video, but I've heard about the meeting itself and some of the feedback from some of the employees. Just for consideration, is it something that maybe you would consider sending out to every employee for their viewing? That maybe not everyone's going to think to go to the website, is my point.
It's a good point. Is that possible? We have the capability to do that, Jim or someone else?
Well, we will reinforce with all employees exactly how to access it. The eNet is available to most of the employees, and to the extent that people don't have access to computer terminals, we will find an alternative way to make it
All
available
right,
to
thanks.
everyone.
Appreciate the comment, Commissioner McKay. Having said that, we thought it was a good idea just to show everybody, before we get to you folks here, 7 minutes, it's a compression of what occurred a couple weeks ago with the employees. Jim, are we set?
You come down here and you go to any agency, any building, talk to any employee, and they're filled with hope. There's a renewed purpose here at the Port Authority. That is because of what you have done. You have transformed this agency to something that was forgotten, shelved, housed, compromised, to a wonderful, beautiful structure that can do. You're going to hear what we did in 2019. Record numbers across the board, record revenue across the board. You're going to hear about what we're going to do in 2020. And we'll only do it because of you.
Our ambition has to extend broadly across the agency, and we have to acknowledge problems. We have to acknowledge shortfalls. We have to acknowledge underinvestment. We have to acknowledge that we're not where we want to be. And then the challenge is to devise strategies to move the agency up the curve, and then to work together to implement those work plans and accomplish real-world changes. That is what we are judged on. So what I see in the Port Authority today is a willingness to rise to the occasion, and I think that is the statement of the Port Authority. As an organization, and in order to do that, it requires the efforts of everyone in this room and everyone in the organization. You all are what gets things done.
So lastly, and by no means least, I just want to say thank you. I get to stand up here and be associated with this, but there are so many of you here that made this possible. 2 words are not enough. They don't even begin to underscore our gratitude for your help. I mean, from audit to engineering, HR to the IG, media to PAPD, everyone. And I don't need the interpreter for this. I'm gonna do this myself. Thank you.
We've been busy over the past couple of months and continue to go full speed ahead to add capacity, to reduce delays, and enhance the customer experience. 2020 is shaping up to be quite a year for PATH, but I'm looking forward to working with all of you, our partners across the agency, to deliver real-time, real-world results to our riders.
28% of the agency personnel and 21% of the operating budget is committed to security. I think that this clearly demonstrates that the chairman, the board, and the executive director have not just stated security is a priority, but demonstrated its importance through personnel and funding. And I will tell you, I've made a couple stops along the way in my professional career, and I've never worked alongside more committed people than the folks at the CSO and our colleagues in the port. So thank you.
Good morning. I have 4 years with the Port Authority, so together we have about 9, so we're going to get to that 10-year mark. We're recognized, but I digress. I'm going to give you a snapshot of what the Port Authority Police Department does, specifically in our counterterrorism efforts. But before I begin, I want to thank Chairman O'Toole, and I want to thank Director Cotton for their unwavering support of the department. Without them, we couldn't be where we are today.
Over the last 2 years, the agency has implemented numerous initiatives that have led to our successful improvement in on-time performance. As Jose mentioned previously, one example was the rollout of our small project program. Historically, projects valued under $20 million represented the poorest performers for on-time delivery. While these projects may seem less significant in terms of their overall value, they comprise the largest quantity of projects in our capital and operating programs. Our improved performance on small projects is largely attributable to 3 key areas. First, we've dedicated teams of engineers specifically to work on small projects. Second, we've instituted measures to ensure better upfront definition of project goals and set clear timelines across the entire lifespan of a project. Third, we've simplified agency processes typically required during the design phase of a project.
The Port Department works in a competitive, global, business-to-business industry while managing the impacts of unpredictable geopolitics like tariff wars, constantly evolving economic trends, and persistent supply chain demands. Following the decision by the world's major ocean carriers to deploy ultra-large container vessels into service, the Port Authority and the Port of New York and New Jersey responded by deepening the harbor to 50 feet, raising the Bayonne Bridge, expanding container terminals, increasing roadway capacity, and building a port-wide intermodal rail network. Today, these investments are paying dividends with cargo volumes at record levels and with ultra-large container vessels regularly calling our marine terminals.
The Port Authority believes in diversity and inclusion. A diverse and inclusive workforce will foster diverse thoughts, diverse ideas, which will ultimately lead to better decision making. One of the ways the agency is advancing this standard and priority is through the work of our employee business resource groups, our EBRGs. These are employee-led organizations that provide a safe space for employees to network, to share ideas, and receive support that will help maximize our potential and be the best employees that we can be.
For TB&T, the implementation of Open Road Cashless Tolling is our preeminent technology project of this decade. At the conclusion of this project, the Port Authority will have increased regional mobility while providing a 21st century tolling solution to our customers.
The culmination of that call and answer was 13 action items that would change the way we recognize employee performance, attract and develop employees, and support the needs of a modern workforce. With each action item that was checked off our ever-expanding list, we showed not only our ongoing commitment to our employees, but our drive to attract, retain, and reward the best high-caliber talent.
So I'm not a big fan of the bell curve, and as far as actually answering your question, our executive director will be more happy with that.
Well, now you can see the nature of our partnership.
Have a great 2020. We're building together.
I want to thank James Allen for that last editing piece there. James, thank you very much. But it was, if you have time, watch the 2 hours. The employees and the folks just really brought a very positive message, and I was inspired by their message, and looking forward to doing this again next year, I'm sure, Rick.
And we will repeat our visits to various facilities in the next 2 months.
Yeah, we're planning that out now. Pivoting now to, we have 9 Port Authority police officers, and you know, these folks, and everybody knows it, literally put their lives on the line every single day. And because I got a sister who's a lieutenant police officer for 20-something years, and I hear the stories from her about what the sacrifice is, and I hear from the fine men and women of the Port Authority what you do every day, and we can't say thank you enough. So this is one of the few times when an extraordinary event comes to our attention. You had a life-saving measures, assisting a customer in distress, and we want to take the time to come out and say thank you. Where's the superintendent? Ed, why don't you come up and introduce us to these wonderful professionals and tell the rest of the story here.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman O'Toole, Director Cotton, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great honor to present this incident that happened at Newark Airport with positive results. On Tuesday, January 21st of 2020, at approximately 10:13 in the morning, Newark Liberty International Airport Terminal B units were dispatched to the base of the AirTrain escalator for a male subject who had fallen. Upon the arrival of Police Officer Nick Brancato and Police Officer Phil Campo, they observed an unresponsive, unconscious male with no pulse. The officers immediately started CPR. Police officers Joe Frankilva, Stephen Magnavita, Matthew Rosati, Michael Rapicchio, and Michael Tilatesi. Common spelling, guys. Thanks. I appreciate these names. Sergeant Anthony Guerrero and Sergeant William Howley also responded to the scene. While waiting for EMS to arrive, all the officers started CPR and continued with multiple cycles of CPR, rotating among each other after numerous compressions. During this time, the automated external defibrillator was placed on the aided patient, and the patient was delivered 2 shocks. After the arrival of MIC-5, who is the airport EMS unit, the officers continued CPR while assisted and directed by EMS personnel. During this time, EMS completed a tracheal intubation to open his airway and an intraosseous infusion into the patient's leg. The aided patient received an additional 4 shocks at that point from the AED. In total, 6 electrical shocks were administered at the scene by PAPD officers. At approximately 10:50 in the morning and 37 minutes later, the aided patient's pulse was restored and he was breathing on his own, and he was transported to University Hospital. Today, several of our officers are here who were on the scene that day to save this gentleman's life. At this time, it's my honor, and I would like to recognize and introduce the following members of the PAPD, if you would stand. Sergeant William Howley, Sergeant Anthony Guercio, Police Officers Philip Campo, Joseph Frankilva, Stephen Magnavita, Matthew Rizzati, Michael Tiliski. We congratulate them for their quick response in providing life-saving actions to ensure the safety and well-being of the traveling public. We commend the professional, calm actions displayed by these officers and recognize that it reflects the positivity upon the Port Authority Police Department and Port Authority as a whole. Commissioners, Chairman, thank you.
Hello.
Okay. At this point, we're going to move to pay tribute to another wonderful employee, Assistant Chief of Operations, Denise Berger. Denise, howdy. You retired. Why? You don't have to answer. It's okay. Just by way of background, we really want to make the effort to honor those who have served here for an extraordinary time doing extraordinary things, and we thought this would be a great opportunity to do something special for Denise. For those that don't know, she joined the Port Authority in 1987, was appointed in the Engineering Department, Chief of Operations in February of 2018, where she's responsible, or was, from day-to-day operations of the department. She started her career with the Port Authority as an architect and previously served as the Assistant Chief Engineer from 2012 to 2018. Denise is very active in the Port Authority and with the outside industry groups in the advancement and empowerment of women in a very male-dominated industry. Denise, you've made an amazing impact. You hear from a lot of folks, either within your department and outside of it, about your reach. You're a role model for all of us, and I thank you, And I know Rick has some things he wants to say as well.
So I would like to add my voice to what the chairman just said. Denise, you and I have gotten to know each other in my short time at the Port Authority at the end of your 30-plus years. I've personally seen Denise in both of her very, very important roles, which is number one, as a leader of the engineering department, among the many skilled professionals working under Jim Starace, our chief engineer. She has risen to one of the most senior positions based both on her service, her talent, and her skill, and we're grateful for that. She has also added to that role at the Port Authority by really engaging in terms of the Port Authority's culture, its diversity. She's been an outspoken supporter and exemplar in terms of women, as the chairman noted, in engineering, which is in fact a male-dominated profession. We're grateful for not only her skill and her service in terms of her work, but in terms of her leadership and her commitment to what the agency stands for and opening opportunities. So Denise, on your retirement, thank you very much.
I would ask the executive director and all the commissioners come down and present to Denise. Denise? Yes. We good? We're good. Is Rick smiling again? All right, now we have an opportunity for the members of the public to speak on public authority matters. This is the public comment period, which is limited to 30 minutes, to provide an opportunity for members of the public to speak their views directly to the board, but does not provide for a dialogue. Members of the public wishing to discuss a specific issue should contact our Public Affairs Department. We ask that the speakers limit themselves to 3 minutes. Our first speaker, Stephen Brophy. Stephen?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board members, executive director. I've been working here at PATH for the last 31 years. 30 of those years, I've been a member of PATH's Electrical Supervisors Union. I come here today to appeal to this board and to respectfully request that you show consideration concerning the expired union contracts here at PATH. Ladies and gentlemen, for the last 9 years, I have not had a pay raise. I am still working at 2011 wages. And with 3 children getting ready to go to college, working here lately has been quite frustrating and demoralizing. Mr. Chairman, in the last 3 years, you, the executive director, and the entire board have achieved record numbers up across the board, and you truly have transformed this agency. I would like to commend the board for these accomplishments. I remember most recently when you and the executive director were able to settle all PA labor contracts, corrected PATH supervisors' discrepancies, along with increasing salaries for PA management. And although our PA coworkers were without a contractor longer than PATH unions, you gave us, within the collective bargaining process here at PATH, hope. I feel that both you and the executive director have done a great job moving this agency into this next 100 years. And I'm asking you to get more involved and to help us resolve these contract disputes. I'm not here to get into the contract details that are presently being offered and countered, but I would like to reiterate what Governor Cuomo conveyed before this very board, and that is, why can't salaries and benefits be the same throughout the agency? After all, as you said, Mr. Chairman, at the last town hall. We are one agency, one family. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to respectfully remind you that although PA Facilities handled increased capacity, we here at PATH proudly take possession of our customers and deliver them to their destination safely and on time. This is done primarily by the hardworking members of the PATH unions. In closing, Mr. Chairman, if you can convince the outsider, lead negotiator, Mr. DeLaverson, who to this point has been unwilling to negotiate fairly, to present the same contract, including its complete compensation package that's been offered to IBEW port workers, I assure you that would have passed overwhelmingly before this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Charlene Tellerico?
Before I start today, I want to mark what today is the 2-year anniversary of the judge rendering her decision in State v. Eller. And though the judge wasn't able to find Diane Eller guilty because she didn't believe the state proved intent, it was stated on the record that my testimony was credible. Good afternoon. As you know, on August 4th, 2016, I was assaulted and physically injured by Diane Eller, now the director of TB&T. I was told the matter was investigated by the Inspector General's office. However, it is my belief that no such investigation occurred, and from the moment I was assaulted, efforts and actions were taken to protect Diane Eller and discredit me. Let's review. On August 4th, 2016, the Inspector General's detective refused to assist me. The Lincoln Tunnel police report states it was a verbal dispute. I was physically injured, which was confirmed by PA Medical. How is that verbal? The Inspector General's detectives never spoke to me. The discovery sent to the Weehawken prosecutor failed to include Diane Eller's original statement, which was never produced. They said it was done on her own personal laptop that was returned to a vendor. I ask you, how many laptops have you all returned to a vendor? I've been through 8. Never one went back to a vendor. The Lincoln Tunnel officers' memo books were not sent as part of the discovery either. And now some of them are missing. And let's not forget, the Inspector General's detective, which was proven by the Hudson County prosecutor's detectives, that he lied to the Weehawken prosecutor about my medical examination and the doctor. Now, General Counsel Michael Fabriage has been named Acting Inspector General. Will this change in leadership lead to honest investigations? Will he have the courage to investigate the events of August 4th, 2016, and finally allow the truth to be acknowledged? Prior to my appearance at the last board meeting, I was told that Michael Fabriage said it was unethical for anyone to talk to me because of the pending litigation regarding my medical examination. I finished my speech by asking him, why isn't lying and covering up wrongdoing unethical? Today I finish with this. Michael Fabriage, it is my sincere hope, and this is not saying sarcastic, this is from my heart. It is my sincere hope that in this new position, you will be wholly committed to creating a strong, skilled, and independent office that is relentless, rigorous, and efficient. An office of the Inspector General that follows the facts wherever they may lead, regardless of rank or position. If only an office like that existed on August 4th, 2016, I wouldn't be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weissman, Nellie Weissman.
Chairman, Director, Commissioners, good afternoon. Happy New Year. Today, I will argue that the agency should employ green bonds to finance sustainable projects. The relevant example being a 2015 offering by Transport for London. You have copies of extended remarks. TfL's goals were to diversify its investor base and promote its pipeline of green assets. The $600 million offering was oversubscribed by half, 40% of the demand coming from continental Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. The proceeds were deposited in the general cash pool and allocated to eligible projects, rail and station upgrades, purchase of hybrid buses, and expansion of its already extensive network of bikeways. Takeaways for the agency. Issuing green bonds would allow it to tap into a growing global market. $260 billion in 2019, and that's up 50% from 2018. In Asia and Europe, where demand for taxable municipal bonds is rapidly growing, environmental, social, and government investing, or ESG, is dominant. If the agency wants to access this market, it will need to focus on the environmental benefits of its offerings. A portfolio of green projects would help the agency avoid downgrade as rating agencies increasingly factor ESG into overall assessments. By identifying a percentage of its pipeline as green and committing to increase it over time, the agency creates a metric to track its own transition. While the agency should expect no immediate reduction in borrowing costs, green bonds could soon trade at lower yields as they would be held riskless once movement towards a low-carbon economy triggers a repricing of greenhouse-emitting assets. As with sovereign debt, the issuer's fiscal health is tied to its host. Taking action that reduces state costs to achieve greenhouse target reductions will in turn benefit the agency. Similarly, investing in infrastructure that enhances resilience against widespread transport outage insulates the agency's own revenue stream from disruption. If the agency follows the timeline embedded in the Climate Paris Agreement, ESG concerns will become paramount in public opinion, legislation, and to institutional investors over the coming 5 years. As BlackRock CEO Larry Fink warned, because capital markets pull risk forward, we will see changes in capital allocation more quickly than we see changes in the climate itself. For me, that's actually good news. In the near future and sooner than most would anticipate. Thank you all.
Thank you. Robert Elijah.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chairman, all the panel members. I'm here. My name is Robert Elijah. I'm a power rail mechanic for the PATH train, Port Authority Trans-Hudson. I'm a member of the IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. We're at an impasse with the contract negotiations with Mr. DeLaverson. Everything that he's put in front of us is total garbage, and there's no way whatsoever that we could ever even think about signing anything that he's put in front of us. Now, I sat here and I watched your compassion, Mr. O'Toole, and I have to commend you for that, for you having the moment of silence for the individual that passed away, and just let me know that you have compassion. I watched the video that you just showed, and everything you said was beautiful. You look beautiful. I mean, it was like, I said, wow, that's really nice. But Mr. O'Toole, it means nothing. 9 years, Mr. O'Toole, we've been without a raise for 9 years. 9 years we have kept those trains running. 9 years, Mr. O'Toole, with no raise, no contract, no nothing. Every encounter that the PATH train went through within those 9 years, we took care of. We kept those trains running. We're the guys on the ground, like I said the last time. We keep those trains running. Those passengers, everything all the accolades that you just had and have pat your colleagues on the back. We never got a pat on the back. You understand? We keep these trains running. All we asking you for, Mr. O'Toole, is to step in. DeLaverson gotta go. Step in, offer us a fair contract. We love PATH. We love our jobs. I told you before, we don't want to fight. But you backing us up against the wall. Our backs is against the wall. 9 years. Has anyone on this panel been without a raise for 9 years? For 9 years. Before we were employees, we're men. Men with families. We're men with families, just like you. We have families. And we still work. For 9 years, we work without a raise whatsoever. Anything that happened to the PATH train, we took care of. Later for the raise. We still working, and we working on it. We just looking for fairness. Fairness, Mr. O'Toole, you got the power. You got the power. You can make this thing happen. You got to get rid of DeLaverson, though. He's like, how are you going to offer us this stuff? You understand? How are you going to offer us a raise that's taken away by us having to pay for our benefits? We know that eventually we got to pay for our benefits, but give us a raise comparable enough to be able to do that. Give us something fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Robert. And Robert, even though you said some things that I can agree with in the earlier part of your conversation, listen, we have tried really hard. We came in 2.5 years ago. There was 23 contracts that were long overdue. And Rick and I and this board made a commitment to get them resolved. And you know, over the last few years, you heard from your colleague, Stephen Brophy, talk about the amazing progress. So, Michael, of the 23, of the 23 contracts, how many have we resolved, and what percentage of the workforce has been now under contract?
It's all of the people on the Port Authority side who are unionized employees, and with today's ratification, if the board indeed ratifies it, it'll be a large percentage of the PATH employees as well.
So we've made, I'm just as a courtesy, because you said some wonderful things about a certain commissioner, you deserve our respect. You work really hard. We are committed to resolving the remaining contracts. You have our word on that. And we are engaged in that process. We had a meeting about it today. Hold out hope, work together with us, and we're going to get there. Okay? Thank you. Alexander Jones.
Good afternoon. I'm here to talk about PATH's workers. We've been out of contract for nearly 9 years. This is the longest any union at a passenger railroad has been out of contract in American history. We recently received a letter from Gary DeLaverson. The letter blamed us for the current impasse in our negotiations and stated that our future medical benefits are going to be prorated and penalized until the contract is settled. Is this part of a good faith effort to resolve the contract dispute, or is it a vindictive threat? Is the Port Authority refusing to settle the contract because of our bargaining terms are unreasonable? No. We're asking for the same terms we got in the last contract a decade ago. Is the Port Authority out of money and can't afford to treat its workers better? No. We're redesigning the PATH system to accommodate longer trains for more riders, and earlier today, your presentation said that PATH has broken ridership records. You need and will continue to need qualified, engaged, and happy workers to maintain this level of success. The Port Authority has a roughly $7 billion operating budget, but you're demanding we give up a paid holiday. The Port Authority is spending close to $3 billion to replace Terminal A in Newark Airport, but you want us, the workers, to agree to a salary cap. The Port Authority spent at least $2 billion to fix the Pulaski Skyway, but you want us to pay into our health care. The Port Authority spent $250 million on the Harrison Station upgrade, but you want us to pay for more prescription drugs. The Port Authority has spent untold millions to install automatic train control to make rides more efficient, but you want to make it more difficult for us to see the doctor of our choice. The Port Authority spent $4 billion on the Oculus at World Trade Center, but you want us to sacrifice a cost of living increase. Clearly, the Port Authority has money to spend when it wants to. It's just a question of priorities. The Port Authority is not prioritizing its workers. The public gets expensive new facilities. The workers get bad offers and threats. We're an important part of the Port Authority. Treat us that way. Renew our contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Mayo? Sean?
Good afternoon. Thank you all for your time. My colleagues covered mostly what I was going to cover already. But I do have to say, I do appreciate your words before and your words at Town Hall. And I do feel like we are moving somewhere. And it is appreciated. I mean, I never thought when I started here that we would have to go through anything like this. I thought it was pretty much clear cut. This is what it is. That's it. I didn't think I was going to have to do informational pickets and come to board meetings. And I mean, I know we're taking up time having to do this. I know a lot of people don't want to hear about it. And believe me, we don't want to be here having to do this. Like you said, we don't want to fight. I love my job. I'm very good at my job. I'm very proud to see the things that I do there. When we did our informational picket, the passengers were very happy with everything. They were happy with everything that you planned out. We executed. This place has changed a lot in the last 14 years that I've been here. One thing I want to bring up is, everybody keeps talking about the Port Authority path. Like I had mentioned back in December, we were always told, pretty much, well, they're here, you're here, this is what they get, this is what you get. And I see how you guys are trying to merge everything and keep everybody on an even scale. And I appreciate that. We do get held to a higher standard. A lot of people out in the public, they always say, union workers are overpaid, and people don't know. They don't see what we see. They don't do what we do. We're held to a higher standard. We have a zero tolerance drug policy. We come in, I sign in, let's go. You're going for a breathalyzer and a urine screening right now. Doesn't matter if I did it that day or 2 weeks before. There's a zero tolerance. I'm held to a higher standard, and I'm fine with that. But I would like to be treated as such also. What I do outside, even when I'm not in my PATH uniform, reflects on PATH and the Port Authority. And I keep that in mind when I'm out about with my business, my family. There's not repercussions for a lot of people when something happens out in public. If they get into a dispute, a fight, anything like that. Not that I ever want to, but if it does, that reflects on us, and I could be disciplined as such also. So I just want you to keep that in mind also. We're held to a higher standard, and we stick to that. For the most, all of us, we're proud. We represent our company. We do it proudly, and I want to thank you for your time, and I hope that we can come to an agreement soon.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Rudolph Emerly.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. I'm also a member of the PATH workforce in the electrical department, and I've never thought that a day will come when I would have to picket or to attend a board meeting when it comes to negotiating my contract of agreement and my terms and conditions of employment. But yet here I am. I would like to point your attention to the mission and the vision of Port Authority, and ask you to look at it and see where you're living up to those things when it comes to the contract of agreement that has been outstanding for approaching a decade with the PATH employees. All right? We talk about customer service. Your employees are supposed to be your first customers. Right? Where are you giving them an exceptional experience as stated in your values and mission? All right? We talk about being an employer of choice. Can we be an employer of choice if we're going to have a contract outstanding for 10 years? Do we expect employees to be engaged and committed at this rate? When we ask the average employee where they work or what do they do for PATH, will they say, I helped move the region? Or will they just say, I work for PATH as an electrician or a power railman? Because they don't see themselves being a part of the bigger mission of this company. I just want to ask you to take a look in the mirror and see where you stand in terms of having this contract resolved. And let's go forward in a spirit of collaboration and cooperation rather than the bullyism and fear tactics that is being portrayed by the negotiator at this point in time. That's not the way we get the best results. We have to operate in a spirit of mutual trust, transparency, and let our integrity stand first. That's all.
Thank you. Thomas Degnan? Is Thomas Degnan here? Thomas? No? Okay. Beatrice? Weiss Williams? Beatrice? Okay, last one, Murray? Murray Bowden? Last speaker.
Rick, when we had the video there, you said that we have to acknowledge the past before we can go forward. Abigail Adams, she was the wife of John Adams, second president, wrote the Constitution, asked him to include a part of it acknowledging women. Didn't happen. Now, 250 years later, it's happening. Women and others are being acknowledged for their skills. As my kids often ask me when we were going on a trip, "Daddy, are we there yet?" The answer is, we're closer. We're closer to equality right across the board.
Thanks, Murray. All righty, we'll now proceed with the voting of the items on the boards for board's consideration. Each of the respective committee chairs will provide a brief report prior to the matter being voted on and considered. As chair of the Committee on Operations, I will now present several items under the committee's purview. First, I recommend that the board approve a collective bargaining agreement between PATH and Local 1413, which represents about 150 PATH employees, which serves principally as PATH conductors. The agreement was ratified by the union members on December 19, 2019. Prior to taking a motion, I ask, are there any committee recusals?
There are no recusals.
Commissioners have a question or comment? Motion, please. Second. Roll call, please.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bagger?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz? Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe? Commissioner McDonald? Commissioner Pacino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Item is approved. The next item authorizes a lease with the New York City Economic Development Corporation for the operation of a fresh food market on the first floor of the Port Authority Bus Terminal South Wing for a 5-year term. The lease contains one 5-year extension option. Prior to making a motion, I ask the board secretary, not the acting board secretary, to note any commissioner recusals.
No recusals.
Any comments or questions from the commissioners? Motion, please.
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bagger?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe? Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Next item, as presented to the Committee on Operations earlier today, authorizes a 10-year lease with the City of Bayonne, New Jersey, which will lease the space for the operation of a passenger ferry and related service at Port Authority Marine Terminal. The aggregate rent is about $2.6 million. I ask the board secretary if there's any recusals.
No recusals.
Any comments or questions from the commissioners? Motion, please.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bagger?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe? Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Next item authorizes a lease with the Public Service Electric and Gas at Port Newark for the use and occupancy of approximately 12,000 square feet for open area for the operation and maintenance of a natural gas meter and regulation station for a 20-year term. I ask the board secretary if there's any recusals.
There are no recusals.
Commissioners have a comment or question? Motion, please. So moved. Second. Roll call.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bagger?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe? Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Vote carries. Vice Chair Linford, as Chair of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, will now provide his report. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chairman O'Toole. As the Chair of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, I will now report on items under the committee's purview. The first item, which was presented in committee earlier today, authorizes amendments to existing lease agreements at John F. Kennedy International Airport with Terminal 4 operator JFK International Air Terminal LLC and Terminal 2 operator Delta Airlines to facilitate a $3.8 billion private investment for the upgrade and expansion of Terminal 4, including the addition of 16 new gates and expanded check-in and arrival areas. Prior to making a motion on this item, I asked the acting secretary to note any commissioner recusals, secretary, to note any commissioner recusals on this matter.
There are no recusals.
Do any commissioners have questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I request a motion on this item.
Second.
Thank you. I request the secretary to call the roll for voting on this item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bagger?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe? Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
The next item authorizes $2 million in planning to support the construction of permanent restrooms and associated driver support services at all taxi hold lots and for-hire vehicle staging areas at John F. Kennedy International, Newark Liberty International, and LaGuardia airports. Prior to making a motion on this item, I ask the secretary to note any commissioner recusals on this matter.
There are no recusals.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions or comments on this item? I request a motion on this item.
Motion. Second.
Thank you. I request the secretary to call the roll.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bagger?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe? Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Thank you. The next item, which was presented by our Director of Aviation at the committee meeting earlier today, would authorize a project at the John F. Kennedy International Airport to replace the existing Farmers Substation with a new substation in order to maintain a state of good repair at a total project cost of $124.7 million. Prior to making a motion on this item, I ask the secretary to note any commissioner recusals on this matter.
There are no recusals.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I request the motion on this item.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. I now request the secretary to call the roll for voting on this item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bagger?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe? Commissioner McDonald? Commissioner Pacino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
As the votes are in order, the item is approved. Lastly, I will submit an item that would reauthorize a project to replace and upgrade PATH's Substation Number 7 in Jersey City, New Jersey, at a total project cost of $78.2 million. This reflects an $8.4 million increase as opposed to the originally authorized amount, attributable to higher than anticipated construction costs required. This authorization also includes an increase to the contract for constructing this project in the amount of $4 million. Prior to making a motion on this item, I ask the secretary to note any commissioner recusals in this matter.
There are no recusals.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I now request a motion on this item.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. I request the secretary to call the roll for voting on this item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bagger?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe? Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Thank you. Before I turn the microphone back to our chairman, I would like to compliment the executive director and the entire Port Authority team for outstanding performance in 2009. And I've added up these statistics, 2019, I'm only 10 years behind time. And I've added up these statistics, which I'm not asking you to testify to the accuracy, but I think it's very impressive if I'm correct, and even if I'm not correct. You have proposed, or we have provided, the infrastructure to support and move over 500 million people. These are riders, commuters, passengers, visitors, tourists, businesswomen, and men. And To explain that, there are 140 million people that travel through the airports. On the TB&T, which is the tunnels and particularly the bridges, if you count both ways, 240 million passengers, and on the path, 82 million. So in terms of our mission to quantify air, land, rail, and sea, and provide the quality, I want to thank everybody. Good job.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you,
There
Mr.
being no
Vice
further business, we move to adjourn.